Hello everyone. My name is Dalia Abraham. Today I will be talking about, does it sound better? Okay. Yeah. Today, yeah, cool, sorry. Today I'll be talking about what is a persistent identifier, followed by my colleagues from ORCID here, Brian and Estelle. They'll be presenting or they'll be talking more about PIDs, ORCID, and NRENs. So the question of the day is, what is a persistent identifier? We know that PIDs are everywhere. PIDs are the policy paper you read, the literature or the journal papers, data set, everything have a PIDs assigned to them. But what are actually PIDs? So we'll unpack the term itself. It is a long-lasting way to reference something. So this is the definition of the PID. I apologize for all the words on this slide, but I think I'll go through the definition first and then we will break down the term. So a persistent identifier is a globally unique and long-lasting reference to an entity with a human and machine-readable metadata that can contain qualified relationship to other entities underpinned by open standards, governance, and infrastructure. That's a big, long definition. So we will go and break down, unpack the term. So PID is a globally unique. PID is a persistent identifier is persistent, globally unique, which means PID goes beyond the systems. And PIDs are the essential part of the research ecosystem. PIDs are used to locate and identify an object on the internet. The next one, it is long lasting. So it's meant to be last for very, very long time. As long as the reference to an entity remain relevant, PIDs expect to be last forever. Human and machine readable, what does that mean? So the PIDs are designed in a way that it can be usable by both humans and machines. We know that humans are intuitional, but slow compared to the computers. But computers are bad at making assumptions. So the way PID is designed, it should be usable and understandable by both humans and machines. Metadata that contain qualified relationship, what does that mean? I'm going to explain this slide a bit later, but this will say the PIDs can be used to show the linkage between research and researcher activities and how they are connected to each others. We'll explain that slide a bit later. PIDs have some structure in place, so it makes sure there is all the PIDs are supported by a structure that ensure that the transparency ensure some transparency there. Most of the PIDs have actually open metadata, and they are licensed in a way that it's a permit for reuse. The only exception is ORCID, because ORCID is a PID for people, and it is the researcher or the owner have the full control. So they have the full control what information they want to share with others. As we all know that to run all the system have some cost attached to it, but compared to the big cost associated with the research, running and maintaining PID system, the cost associated, it's very small. So now we have gone through the entire the definition and unpack the each terms. I hope that it make a bit more sense now. So we'll look at some examples. Now you all know what the PID is or what persistent identifier is, why they are important. So this is an example of an DOI PID here. So DOIs are like basically used for it's a digital object identifier, basically used for journals, articles, etc. So when most of the PIDs are expressed in a URL format, so they are like friendly. You don't really have to go and remember the whole, the PID ID. You can click it and it resolve, and you can see the underlying metadata, and you can find more information about it. So this is a DOI PID, digital object identity. DOI is used for the digital object identifier. And if you look at the next slide, that bit is actually the DOI. So so you can see that from starting from 10 dot, ending with dot 18, that is the actual DOI. And it has a prefix and suffix. But all the PIDs are, as I explained before, all the PIDs are expressed in a URL format, so we can click and see the details. This is an example of an ORCID PID. ORCID is an open contributor ID, mainly used as a PID for people. So the people have the full control. Anybody can sign up and register for an ORCID ID. It's completely free. You can use it for your life. So even the researcher changed the affiliations. The ORCID ID will follow the researcher. So you can use it for your whole life. Doesn't matter which organization you are affiliated with or what research project. It's a unique profile to identify the researcher. So now we have looked at some, ORCID is also expressed in the URL format. Now we have looked at some PIDs example. The next question is, how many different kinds of PIDs are there? Well, I guess the answer to the question is there are too many to choose from. These are some of the common PIDs used in Australia. In Australia, Australian Research Datacoms, they provide and manage PID services. That include ORCID, RAID, DOIs, and IGSN. I will explain a bit more. Look at those ones a bit detail in this slide. So ORCID, as I mentioned, is free. It's an open contributor research ID, mainly for people. So there are different type PIDs, PIDs for people, PID for digital objects. So ORCID is a PID for people. And so the next one in the slide here is an ROR, which is a research organization registry. So that is a PID mainly used for the organizations and institutions. DOI is a digital object identifier, which is used for the research outputs, equipments, grants, etc. RAID, ARDC run, Australian Research Datacoms run the RAID service. RAID is mainly used for track the research activities here. And IGSN is again another one for physical samples and specimens. So, why we saw different type PIDs, why do PIDs matter? As I mentioned before, PIDs are an essential part of research ecosystem. This will show some qualified connection and linkage. So in this picture, this is a research graph here. In this picture, you can see that different PIDs, how they are linked or how they are connected to each other. For example, if somebody written a paper, they might have an ORCID ID attached to that, and then they are associated with an organization. The organization published that PID that will have an ROR, and then we'll have some grant, we'll have an DOIs, and also the researcher want to use some data set for their research activities. So they can use the DOIs as well as for the project activities, they can use RAID. So the whole diagram, this will give you an overview of how different PIDs, how they are connected in the research ecosystem and why they are important. So, Australian ORCID Consortium. ORCID is a global non-profit organization, have a presence in most of the countries around the world. As you all know that Australian Access Federation run the identity federations. We also lead the Australian Consortium in Australia, which is established in 2016. It is a non-profit organization. It's managed by AF and cost recovered. It's run on a membership base. Researchers do not really need to join any consortium. Researchers can sign up for their ORCID ID free, no problems. but the members, they probably want to join the consortium, so they will have a lot of benefits. They will get a more insight of the researchers and their activities, so that will give them more insight. We have 44 consortium members so far since we established in 2016. Out of 44 members, 38 are higher education institutions, like they are universities. 2 of them are national funders, ARC, Australian Research Council, and NHMRC, National Health and Medical Research Council. 3 of them are research organizations, CSRO, ARDC, which is a Australian Research Datacoms, and Australian Nuclear Science Technology. Those 3 are the research organization in Australia, and 1 government organization. Only the Queensland Health is the only current member of the ORCID consortium. So what are the benefits of having a consortium in your country? It will help to create a national community of practice. It helps the people can come together and contribute, where everyone can participate and contribute. And it also provides premium membership to the ORCID members. Since 2016, I believe we have actually saved in cost 5.9 million just in membership cost for all our members. And also we have a in-country support available, so which means that we help our members with their integrations, testing, comms, etc. So all those support is also available. So that's the benefit of running your own consortium in your country. So why should NRENs lead an ORCID consortium? As I mentioned in my previous slide that, so I already explained some of the benefits there. It will allow NRENs to drive research agenda in your country. So if you run your own consortium in your country, you can add more value-added service to your members. Because ORCID is a unique research identifier and also a key part of the identity and federation. So if you run your own ORCID consortium, which will help you to shape and drive the national research agenda for your country. So that's the advantage of having your own consortium in your own country. And it also provides membership and other value-added services. Usually it's run on a membership basis. So it adds value-added service to your members. I think that's pretty much for my first part of the introduction. Now I will hand over to Estelle and Brian. So they will be talking more about ORCID, PID, and NRENs, how it's go beyond the NRENs. And we will have a Q&A at the end of the session. Thank you.
Let's share. Yeah. And yeah, good morning, everyone. Ohayou gozaimasu and 早安. So yeah, it's from ORCID. I'm Estelle Cheng. I'm based actually in Taiwan, but ORCID is registered in the US. So I'm very happy today. This is my first time in APAN physically. I used to join the virtual one during the pandemic, so I'm very happy. And before my presentation, I want to do a little survey. Not survey, just try to understand a bit more. So can you raise your hand if you hear about ORCID? Thank you. Can you raise your hand if you hear about ORCID's presentation? Okay, that's roughly the same. So, but it's good. I think most attendees today may not have the chance to learn more about ORCID. So I'm very happy and to share a bit more about ORCID, NRENs, and federated identity, and how does ORCID work in practice, and some case studies, and then discussions. So today I'm joining this conference along with my colleague, Brian. And for today, yeah, just quickly to share, so as Dalia mentioned, so ORCID is a PID for researchers or people who contribute to research. So as this little diagram shows, ORCID associates researchers with different research outputs and different organizations and fundings through links to other PIDs. I like this diagram because it's very vividly. And then, so a few ORCID facts. So ORCID actually launched in 2012, so we just celebrate. We're kind of 10 years old now, a bit more. And it's a totally independent, non-for-profit organization in the US. So now ORCID is free for researchers, but we are sustained by membership fees from our member organizations. And we are not a vendor. We need to be very clear. We are not a member, but a vendor. We are guided by our values and principles, and we do have a board that govern ORCID, and actually the board is elected from and by from our members. So ORCID, in short, provides three main services: the ORCID ID, which I hope that everybody either use it or hear about it. So it's a unique PID for researchers. And the second is the ORCID record. So it's actually a kind of digital CV or profile you see alone connected to the ORCID ID, and it contains different parts of research information from education, funding, peer review, etc. And the third is, the third is a bit more technical, but it's about ORCID APIs. Actually, the APIs enable data exchange between the ORCID registry, the ORCID records, and our member organizations. So that's the three services. And so this is the ORCID record, if you haven't seen that. And you can see the ORCID ID there and different parts of research information. So as Dalia mentioned, so researchers have control about this information to be publicly available or just set to private scene. And so this gives you a sense about, so ORCID ID is not just ID itself. What's more important is the information metadata connected to the ORCID ID. And then this is about the current global representation. So actually now we have more than almost 1,000, nearly 500 organizational members, and we have different systems that connect with ORCID. And there are about 9 million researchers around almost every country in the world that using ORCID actively. And so to be here, from now on, I'm going to talk more about ORCID NREN and federated identity. And I hope now everybody get a bit of sense about ORCID and what it offers, how it helps. So yeah, so this is what we try to communicate, because we realize that I'm going to show later on, but ORCID globally work with a lot of different NRENs and federated identities as well. And actually, we share quite the same visions and values, like improve researcher identification identity, and support research, build infrastructure, and improve trust and identity, which is important mission for both ORCID and NRENs, or federated identity, and improve transparent dissemination about research for sure. And just to do the above, of course, we need transparent connections between researchers and their research outputs, etc. And the foundation will be trusted information and the use of standardized PIDs like ORCID or ROR, as Dalia mentioned. And those infrastructure will be crucial to really implement those from principles to practices. Then, yeah, I think this is the interesting part about individual identity versus academic identity, or legitimacy. Yeah, so I think that's a very interesting concept, so I want to share. So when we talk about individual identity, about legally or validated, we always think about traditional ID. That's for sure important because it provides validated legal name, etc. But in a scholarly communication world for the bonus feeds, actually it's more important if we can have a way to validate the researchers' contributions or their affiliations. So that's what we are conveying to the community now. It's important to, in addition to, of course, the traditional way about validated academic affiliation or research outputs, funding records, that's what really matters in the scholarly world. And to be further illustrated, so identity in the scholarly communication are cumulative. What does that mean? So, of course, the traditional government about really know the researcher, the legal identity is important, but it's may not be really useful in a scholarly world. The traditional government ID may be useful if you want to sue someone. Hopefully not. But in the scholarly world, it's more likely that we need to have strong, correlation about the general researchers. It's more important to identify the work they did or the research affiliation they are with. And of course, this to be universally used because researchers are mobile. It's not just at the national level, at the institutional level per se. And that's the ORCID record. And in the ORCID record, you can see a very important part we call source. So researchers, of course, can add information themselves. You can see the source is from the researcher themselves. But what's more, that if you're an organization using API to add information, we call such trust markers because it sends the information is validated directly from the organization. And this is very important because transparency in who is adding the information is helpful to help the community to evaluate trustworthiness. So one, of course, from the researcher themselves is kind of self-asserted, and with the trust markers, the level of trust will add another layer because this will provide a way to ensure that that's from the organization validation. And those trust markers with the little green check mark, you can see, that will help for further decision making. And again, this is very simple, but I think very informative diagram. Of course, if we have more trust markers in ORCID records, that's more trustworthiness. And now we have this feature available in the ORCID records. You can see that how many self-asserted works are added for a researcher, or how many works or research outputs are added by members. And more trustworthiness, of course, better research identity, because that provides more better way to, as illustrated before, about identification or about how validated those for a researcher's contributions, etc. And last but not least, ORCID is a hub of open data that enables different others to innovate and make decisions. So because it describes the provenance and trust markers, etc. So yeah, from here, I'm just going to also quickly mention a bit. So yeah, individuals, we will know that you need to sign up, but it's also important because we need to work with organizations, and we partner with ORCID, different organizations, and for organizations, that you also need to adopt ORCID. Otherwise, if just for researchers sign up, they have no infrastructure to implement ORCID. And quickly also mention about ORCID Consortium. So as you know now, AAF leads the ORCID Consortium, and they are really ORCID partner. I think there are also some NREN leads here today, so maybe we can invite them to share a little bit more around during the discussion. And ORCID Consortium is a model for nonprofit or governmental organizations, and it usually contains a group of 5 organizations that work together. And the consortia will be composed of a consultant lead, that's AEF, along with different consortia members. And as Dalia mentioned, it forms communities of practices. And this is the benefits. So as Dalia mentioned, so I'm going to skip this part. Basically, it's really about driving the national strategy to ensure NRENs can add more services. And now we have 29 consortia. So actually, there's also one in Japan. It's just not led by federated identity, just in that case. But we do have another several good cases that for NRENs or federated identity in ORCID community. So there are some keep coming. So I think my colleague Brian will share more about the Sri Lanka case. And we have some more about its be leading the ORCID consortium for a long time. So I just add here. And for NRENs and federated identity is a tongue twister. Federated identity. So there are different ways to engage with ORCID. Some are being a consortium lead. Some, although may not be the lead, but they join consortia as a member, and a few that just join ORCID directly. So by doing this, I want to illustrate there are different ways for working with ORCID. And this is the example of different consortia, so as a reference. I think, Terry, I think we will make our slides available, right? Yeah, okay, so don't worry about slides. Yeah, and just to quickly go through in the integration part, the API stuff part. So I'm going to go quick because I don't think we will go to technical details, but basically, as you may hear often about ORCID integration. So basically that means your system interact with ORCID via our API. So this is the best practices. So the first is use ORCID as a sign option, and you display those authenticated ORCID IDs, and you can synchronize data, including writing and reading. That's basically the overall story of integration with API, with ORCID. And the little diagram on the right hand side shows that we work with different systems. So we do work with publishing system, and more than that, we work with discovery system too, funding system, or even institutional repository system. And the first, as I mentioned, is always start with researchers. Having an ORCID ID for sure, and researchers need to authenticate, or a more friendly way to say that, connect their ORCID IDs to different systems. So this is all off screen as we shared. And this is an example. This is one of member in Korea. So they actually has the synchronized information from their repository, their researchers' records. And you see the source name is the little green check mark. And last but not least, I want to go to share a few recent successful case. So I assume everyone here hears about GitHub. Yeah, so GitHub recently have joined ORCID, and we have an MOU. So now for GitHub users, you can link your ID to your GitHub profile. And in the future, there are ongoing actions that there should be more data exchange in the future. And this is about the publishing workflow from Wiley. So may not be too familiar, but I think the idea is that in the publishing world now, like publisher like Wiley, they also use trust markers. So, and also the first is that they allow signing with ORCID. And they use ORCID information collected via API to help better streamline their editorial process and to ensure the author's information, as I said. So recall about the identity part. So that's why now they use trust markers to even add a level of research integrity about reviewers or authors. And this is another example from the MIT repository in the US. So basically the idea is also about the first, of course, link ORCID ID first as a signing option, or connect their researchers' ORCID ID to their system. And then information collected from ORCID ID helps this organization and this platform PhysioNet, so they can better verify the applicant's information, so to ensure if they need to grant access, because this is a kind of a medical restricted repository, so they can decide whether this applicant is qualified to use this repository. So trust markers ensure increased efficiency and confidence level of their services. So this is a way, so they include ORCID ID and different information they use. So to recap, so the use of open and standardized PIDs, infrastructures, and services drive principles to practice, and NRENs, ORCID, and federal identity actually quite align with each other about mission, vision, and values. So yeah, I'm happy to talk during the discussion or during the conference. And also ORCID offers a free sandbox testing environment for everyone who is interested in learning more about APIs. So you can try out, it's totally free, you just apply. And we also have the consortium webpage, and we have the events webpage, both for physical events or virtual webinars. So you're welcome to take a look. And yeah, that's me, thank you. So yeah, Gary, thank you. Yeah. Stop sharing. Let me stop.
All right. Last bit about ORCID. I'll make it very, very brief. My name is Brian Minihan. I'm Estelle Jung's colleague. I work with mostly with consortia, so I work with the Australia NRENs. I've worked with Paul Axelsson, if you know him, at SUNET as well. And I'm actually co-presenting today with the NREN in Sri Lanka, LEARN. And so I'm going to talk a wee bit about ORCID and consortia, and then there's some content that my LEARN colleagues have added as well. So this is me and my colleague at LEARN, Shashini Witanage, I think. And so we're very happy to co-present, and I've really enjoyed working with them. Essentially, they are the NREN for Sri Lanka, and they're in the late stages of becoming a ORCID consortia there. So there's a few things that maybe I can add about ORCID. I can certainly tell more about the global structure and why we interact with the NREN community and why we're at APAN and GIANT and all the TNC and all the other events you may run across us. Estelle and Dalia did a wonderful job of naming that we have that persistent identifier for people. We have that sort of CV that connects with other systems, and it does that via the API product. And again, this is another representation of the different PIDs out there. I will say that this kind of changes every now and then. So, you know, for example, we had an organization identifier that was pretty prominent, and then they said, stop, we're not going to do this anymore, which is a bit odd because it's the opposite of persistent, right? So you're supposed to be able to keep this up for a long time. Thankfully, this organization, ROAR, has taken that on, so it's kind of seamlessly continued, and they've grown into a mature identity for organizations registry. And definitely check this out. This is one of the fathers of PIDs and DOIs, Jonathan Clark. He has a wonderful article there if you want to learn more. Right, here's the record. We can also see the summary of the record, which is handy for busy people and decision makers. And you can just type in summary after your ORCID URL if you want to look at that. Estelle mentioned the trust markers. So this is really the most important part of why we interact with organizations and NRENs, is that they use the API to connect to the ORCID record. So you can be, you know, the best researcher in the world, but if you happen to live in an area where you don't have any API connectivity for whatever reason, you may not be getting the most benefit out of the ORCID record. And I'll show you this next, oh, no, sorry. In any case, the researchers that live in places that have API connections tend to benefit the most, because after a while they don't have to do anything. When they have funding or research, all the things that they normally do, the API will automatically update and save them time. This is my favorite part to talk about with ORCID. We are very, very, very small. There's only 40 of us. Estelle and I are Asia. That's it. You're looking at Asia right here today. So we really depend on this sort of model of national representatives of consortia to scale up. So our colleagues, as Dalia mentioned, Australia has 44 organizations that they help us scale. Paul's consortium in Sweden is 12, yeah? 11, 12, yeah, more or less, kind of, yeah.
Up and down.
Yeah, okay. Maybe World Maritime is not sure.
They are moving on.
Yeah, exactly, okay. So, but in any case, folks like that really help us locally. You know, they have the expertise and relationships with the universities already, with the identity management and things. So, also, we have the free ORCID record there. The registry, all the server and supporting the API calls back and forth does cost resources. So we are sustained mostly by almost 80% by these consortia that we keep talking about. And yeah, they really are kind of the most of our provide our operating budget. You know. Right, Estelle showed you this. I just want to point out one bit of this. So 61 countries. That's very important because most of these 61, as I mentioned, are in consortia, but they're also overwhelmingly in North America and Europe. And so we really find that several places produce a lot of research, but because they don't have membership with the organization, the researchers there really don't benefit all that much. So for instance, India, China, where else? Indonesia, yeah, and so, well, Brazil, yeah, huge amount of researchers, but only a few organizations that interact with us, yeah. So again, the consortia help us scale. We have this kind of very flexible model for size of organizations and size of the number of organizations that form a consortia. And as you can see, the bigger the consortia, the more discounts. I previously worked with the US consortia. I think they have 207 members now, and they have 3 full-time staff for the consortia helping with ORCID. Again, this is the, never mind. But you can see again, like of the 29 consortia, most of them are in North America and Europe. And so we're definitely making inroads in other parts, and I'm going to talk about where those are. Again, this is the benefit. You guys have the sign-in and you know, identity expertise. You know your community and things, and so we rely on that. And then also, NRENs can provide something else besides sign-in or access to wherever resources. So, SUNET is an interesting example because they mostly universities, but you have the National Library as well as part of your consortium, and your funder, I believe, yeah?
Yeah,
indeed.
that's because of that's how we function as a country.
Yeah, yeah, indeed, yeah. The South African consortia also has their funding agency as well, and they are mostly universities. They also have a tool that they offer their universities and funders, so this allows them to kind of help, especially sometimes we have librarians that don't have that much technical expertise and really require a lot of additional help with the API, and this is just a link to their system if you're keen to look more. Finally, this is our newest consortia, led by the Nigerian NREN EcoConnect, and they're really quite enthusiastic. They just started a few months ago, and so I think they'll be doing wonderful things. And these are my colleagues in Sri Lanka. And this is their content, so I hope to, you know, to have them speak more about it. But essentially, they want to leverage their existing, like I say, capability with their community and also offer ORCID services. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, they want to use open source repository or research information system for their university members once they do complete the membership. Yeah, and this is kind of their ongoing plan. And yeah, so we look forward to seeing more from them, and that is it. Done for me. Cheers.
So do we have any questions for our ORCID team, ORCID PIDs team? So Brian, how far into Asia are you sort of planning to go? You trying to get all the Asian nations signed up in the future?
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, there's really a lot of one insight I have from doing this, Estelle, I don't know if you would agree, but so Estelle and I have been at ORCID almost 7 years. A lot of the movement with ORCID in a particular institution, region, country is personality driven, I would say. So, like for instance, if you and Dalia and Melroy left your organization, maybe Australia's involvement with ORCID might go down, and that's really the same in any country. So.
And Julie, of course.
Well, no, I'm still here. Yeah, but
Julie's our new team member at New ORCID.
what's that?
We've got
Oh,
the-
Julie. Yeah, indeed. Yeah, that's right. So they are in. Yeah, they're actually expanding, not contracting. But yeah, I mean, I think there's this community is a really nice opportunity to speak with NRENs, and even if you're not doing ORCID membership, it's nice to kind of think of people and collaborate on possible projects and things. Yeah.
And one of the benefits that the AF or the Australian community is actually seeing out of ORCID is through access to grants and funding. So granting organisations now require ORCIDs to get a grant, but that then ties the whole of the having researchers provide their ORCID when they request funding from the government then allows the whole reporting of the utilisation of that funding to sort of start flowing through. With that ORCID, they do some project work, that's tied to the project work, and tied to the funding that funded that project work, and at the end of the day when they need to report back to the government how they did, they just pull a lot of that information straight out of ORCID. That's been a great benefit for us and for the universities. They've saved so much time and effort at the end of the year when they have to report back to the government about how much research activities they did. ORCID's just been brilliant for pulling all that stuff together.
Yeah, that's a good point. In fact, you may have noticed I was a bit confused because I thought that there was a slide in this that was in a presentation I did last week. I'm sorry, but this, and I'll be happy to share the URL, but essentially it's a New Zealand researchers ORCID. And the New Zealand funder is an ORCID member, and they actively add funding information to the researcher. The New Zealand consortia lead also adds grant review activities. So for example, if you're reviewing grant applications and you serve on that, they put that in. So there's a lot of added benefit that, like I say, this researcher in New Zealand really benefits from that, say, a researcher in Bangladesh or even Hong Kong or anywhere would not have.
Yep. Okay, any other comments or feedback from the folk? Yeah.
Maybe a question. So, but nothing really about. I'm just curious about who we are here as today, the participants. Like, I'm interested to know. I see this sketched. I know some people remain private, so I don't know who we are today. I was wondering if a way to really understand the participants today about.
What we've done previously is have everyone stand up and introduce themselves.
Yeah, I think that time, right? Yeah, are you okay with this option? Yeah, but I think it's easier for me and Brian, maybe other participants to know just a bit more because.
Take the microphone around and put it in people's faces.
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to make people nervous or feel like.
I'll make them nervous.
Okay. Do you want to start from the front or like? Maybe.
Sure, Terry, would you like to?
Yeah, Terry. Okay.
Everyone knows me. Terry Smith from the Australian Access Federation, head of the support team with Dalia, and we've also got Melroy and Julie who are ORCID support. So we've been very keen and running the ORCID consortium very successfully in Australia for many years now.
I hope you see me. I will not stand up right now. Paul Axson from Sweden. I'm the ORCID consortia lead there, besides my normal identity federation work. Yeah, that's the simplest way of saying it.
Hi, I'm Farhan from Sifulan Machine Access Federation, the FFP Engineering and Services. I'm an ORCID user. Thank you.
Sure. You do first here. Yeah.
I'm gonna go make sure everyone's, yeah, sorry.
Hello, morning. My name is Nurul Faizah. You can call me Jai. I'm from University of Science Malaysia. I'm working as an network administrator in USM.
No, I don't think I need. Yeah.
You already talked.
Yeah, I talked too much.
Hello, I'm Mark from Taiwan. I'm now a grad student in National Yangming Jiaotong University. And actually, we are an user of ORCID. And actually, I come here because this session is for IAM for federation, right? And Taiwan's still not a federation here, but we come here because my school cannot log into ORCID because you guys use EduGain service. So I come here for propose. We want to create Taiwan Federation this year. Okay, so that's why I'm here.
Okay, yeah.
We do have a Taiwan NREN. I just want to. We do have an NREN in Taiwan, but we don't have federal. As far as I know.
Yeah, I'm Hideaki Goto, an associate professor of Tohoku University, Japan, and I'm just a user of ORCID.
Hello, I'm Asma Zaidan. I'm currently working at the Okinawa Institute of Research and Technology, and I'm responsible for the management of the institutional repository. And I'm currently the affiliate manager at the institution for ORCID affiliations. Yeah, nice to meet you.
Hello, I'm Jiayang from Malaysia. I'm a graduate student from UST Malaya, and nice to meet you all.
I'm Takashi Naito from NII Japan. I'm a technical staff at NII. Just I'm not a user. So, thank you.
Hi, I'm Takeshi Nishimura from Japan. I'm operating Identity Federation. Thank you. Hi, I'm Kevin. I'm a graduate student from Cheng University in Taiwan, and I'm new to the ORCID. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Colleen Estrada. I'm from the University of the Philippines. Currently, we don't have an ORCID affiliation, and I think since we're trying to build the federation and start it in our campus, so I think we need to start creating and maybe using ORCID if we can talk about on our NREN. So, thank you.
Hello, my name is Maarten Kremers. I'm from SURF in the Netherlands, which is the research and education network. I've got the cameras on my back even. Yeah, I'm seeing my back too large in the horrible. So at SURF, I'm in the Trust and Identity department. SURF is also the leader of the consortium in the Netherlands for ORCID. But SURF is rather large, I must say, because I did met my co-worker who leads the consortium in the same meeting as with Ivo Weinbergen we had a while ago, so who is also at ORCID on Director of Engagement. Besides that, from the TNI part, we run a federation, and the ORCID, the federated login via EduGain, is connected via SURF Connect as a service provider. And besides that, I'm the program manager of the EduGain service, amongst others. Talking about EduGain.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Davide Vaghetti from Italy. I work for GAR, and I also work for Giant as the EduGain service owner. In Italy, ORCID is managed by Cineca, that is computing and application services facility. We do the network and trust and identity, for example. And that's it. I'm an ORCID user.
Good
morning. My name is Sotsai Sengwong from University of Laos. I am the system engineer and also working for the Lao NREN. I'm interested in identity federations, and this is a new one for me. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I am Dalia Abraham. I work for Australian Access Federation, and our colleagues Melroy, they participate in a lot of ORCID community practice and activities in Australia. Our CEO Heath, he's an ORCID member, so yeah, ORCID is growing really good. He's also in the ORCID, yeah, that's right, ORCID board. He's an ORCID board member. Yeah, so ORCID is going really good.
Hi, good morning. I'm Eisak Sakane from National Institute of Informatics, Japan. So, I'm a researcher, and also I'm in charge of GACNIN operation. So GACNIN stands for Japanese Identity and Access Management Federation. So I'm just I'm some ORCID user, and I'm interested in of course persistent ID. So but so I have a very simple question. So how to ensure binding identifier and entity like human persistently? So some so some period and some sorry. I also I'm very interested in trust marker in ORCID system. So but ORCID ID is persistent ID. So some period researcher belongs to some organization, but the other period the researcher is belongs to the other organization. These some actually life cycle of persistent ID is how
ensure
yes,
in the future.
yes. Anyway, so I'd like to learn more ORCID system or persistent ID. So let me discuss the some issue around the persistent ID. Thank you.
Sure. I don't know if it's actually a very big question, so I'm just going to pick a few parts that I can answer. The ORCID cannot be for an organization, can only be for an individual. And so it's linked to an email address. So let's say if, again, using Terry moving jobs as an example, if he goes to Australian National University from AAF, then he will have to keep that associated with his 16-digit ORCID ID. And this is how we kind of figure out how we figure out non-duplicates and things, is that matching with the email address with the 16-digit thing. But as far as persistence goes, once you link yourself and your ORCID 16-digit, your ORCID number, that's 30-year, there will be a 30-year token. So even if nothing changes and I still use ORCID, 29 years from now, I will have to re-authenticate or re-verify that I am who I am. So this is kind of the scenario that was drawn up when ORCID was created. What we figured 30 years is good enough. It's long, but it's not inconceivable that might be possible to keep up, from a hardware or that sort of way. I hope that answers part of your question. Yeah, Estelle.
Thank you for the question. So I just want to a bit more about the persistent part. So I think the part of persistence can actually be classified two categories. One is technically, the other is actually about governance, about policy side. So I think that's why ORCID works so hard to ensure the persistence, because so the ID cannot be really persistent without good policy or structure. So that's what ORCID keeps doing and moving. And we will also got questions about like the persistence of ORCID itself. So like ORCID will not be solved in a sense. I think in our board charter, we do list out that it requires maybe kind of a certain percentage of board decision to kind of dissolve or something, but that's unlikely to happen, let me put it that way. So ORCID won't be sold out or disappear, let me put it that way. Even if something happens, there are detailed procedures about to ensure the persistence of ORCID itself. So that's one thing. And technically, of course, that's why we put so hard about try to ensure we keep up to date. I think recently we have the AWS, correct me if I'm wrong, or ASW, I always forgot it. We just do some technical parts to ensure the server stuff that's up to date. We have that in our blog post, you can take a look, because we want to ensure that everything at ORCID is kind of newest, especially about persistence and the technical pieces. And what else I want to check? Yeah, and the ORCID ID. Yeah, and ORCID ID is persistent too, because once a person sign up, that ORCID ID is forever. So you won't change your ORCID ID once you sign up. Even you change your profession or you move around. What Brian mentioned about re-authentication is the way that when you connect to a certain system, like if I authenticate to NII after, I think it's 20 years, Brian. Maybe 20, or 30 now? Okay, 30. Then after 30 years, I need to re-authenticate again, just because that's the way we're already created. But my ORCID ID remains forever, even I passed away in that sense. Yeah, so that's the persistence of ORCID ID. And also one thing is that we also got question about if deceased people can go to ORCID ID, but that's not possible because ORCID ID requires people to actively sign up, so you cannot have an ORCID ID for maybe like Shakespeare. He already passed away for hundreds of years, just example. So yeah, that's something about ORCID. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I would also add for the organization part, there's good and bad about us being a U.S. organization. So the bad I don't need to, we all know, but the good part is that being registered in the U.S. as a nonprofit, it's actually illegal to sell our organization. So this is what Estelle means, is that would take the board agreeing that the organization will be dissolved and somehow the nonprofit charter changed to allow a transfer of some kind. So just want to point that out, that it's a feature of organizations with this registration type in the U.S. that they cannot be purchased or anything like that.
And just that Dalia will never let me leave. Okay, thanks Dalia, Estelle and Brian for your great presentations this morning, and thanks for all the great questions, and hopefully you guys got something out of it as well. Yep. We're finishing up a little bit early for this session, so you've got an extended morning tea. Back here in this room at 11 o'clock for the Edge Your Own talks today. So, thanks everybody.